Everyone's waiting for an alt season, but I think most people, especially content creators, are using the wrong timelines and the wrong charts to tell people to buy. If you want to catch the real moves and not chase the fake pumps, the charts are already giving us a bit of a clue. Now, in my last video, I talked about how 2021 wasn't very good and 2025 will probably be better. Today, I'm going to show you exactly when I think alt season will happen, but also why not every single coin will pump or survive. Now, if you agree with me, smash that like button. It helps the channel a lot. Let's get over 300 likes. We nearly got there in the last video. Now let's talk about alt seasons as a general thing. My previous video, I spoke that not everything's going to pump, and some people were like, it's a bit conservative. But I still think that Bitcoin leads this cycle. On the screen, you have the Ethereum / BTC ratio since the cycle low. It's not done anything. And that's where the biggest clue is. And stick around, you'll see more and more charts to back all this up because it makes sense if you put it around it. Now, the real alt season situation is, I think, selective. Only real momentum, strong narratives, and solid Bitcoin pair assets will shine. Meme coins, trash vaporware will eventually nuke and people will get unsettled when that happens. But there's still places for the likes of Solana to do well, XRP to do well, even Ethereum and other big obvious assets because they are gaining actual traction in the real world. It's one of those things. People in finance now want to invest in things that they can trust, right? You can't really trust some random coins that say 20 million market cap who have been funded by a load of weird ass people for it to go and fly. We've seen recently over the last few years how Binance and other big exchanges are literally nuking projects because they don't have enough liquidity. And we'll talk about liquidity in a bit because there's a lot of things to kind of unpack in terms of that side of it because everyone gets that misconception wrong too. It's a pain in the ass. The other situation we've got to look at is obviously Bitcoin's price performance data from the cycle low too. This is still lagging in my opinion. I think we are going to go for a random pump. We may be getting into that point now, but I still believe, in my opinion, alt season will happen, but not like the previous ones. Let me explain. The first key difference on the screen is the fact that the Bitcoin dominance chart has been uptrending for twice as long as the previous cycles. That's a bit of an alarm bell. And historically, alt seasons begin when this begins to top out and drop. But until this actually rolls over and confirms a breakdown, altcoins will continue to lag. There's other charts that back that up as well, so bear with me. Now, the situation we've got to look at is, and I alluded to it just then, the world of the M2. On the screen here, people are doing this kind of offset day, 90-day bollocks. It's the biggest load of shit ever. Don't fall for it. The M2 going up is traditionally bullish, but it affects all assets, not Bitcoin, not altcoins as a whole, not your individual altcoin neither. We do not know where that money is going to flow into. So when we look at other elements, which I will come on to in the next bit, we will start to see breakdowns of a number of things. We'll see things rising as well. And this is what you need to pin your ears back and look at it. I talk about it a lot on my Patreon. There's a link below if you want to get into it. Dominances and why they're important and when you should be buying and when you should be selling. And more importantly, what you should be doing with your assets. Too many people look at the previous cycles and think this is what's going to happen. But it doesn't happen the same. History rhymes, but it doesn't always repeat, right? So when I talk about my previous videos a couple of years ago, when dominance of Bitcoin did break down, it was a really good chance to make money on altcoins. This time around, any breakdown hasn't really reflected that. Hence why we're nearly 900 days in an uptrend, by the way. So the next chart we need to look at, and it's the very most obvious one, and I talked about in my previous videos, is the fact that this is breaking down. This is the stable currency dominances, right? This is giving us an idea that stable currencies, whether it's DAI, whether it's USDT, whether it's USDC, whatever, is moving into assets. But we don't know which assets. So it's kind of acting a bit like an M2 in a way. So when I look at this circle, this was the previous run when XLM, Hedra Hashgraph, XRP, and ISO coins were doing a bit of a pop. We had a bit of a run from that September time all the way down into this, December time. It kind of weirdly turned around as Jerome Powell went, you know what, we're not going to do as many rate cuts this year, or next year, sorry. Again, when we look at the previous alt season run that we had, we melted from, say, this January time into this March, April time, where a lot of AI coins popped off when Bitcoin had a really big run as well. This is an important chart, and we are starting to finally break down. If I zoom out on this chart and make it a bit more user-friendly for you mobile users, you'll see we could be going back down to these level lows. That could be an indication we get a bounce. Now, in my opinion, we've got two situations we've got to look at. Situation A is very simple. If we go down to these levels and then bounce, it may only be a small bounce on an alt-season metric. If we, however, do the opposite and absolutely decimate that level, bear with me, and just go below that into the levels of like maybe 3% or even 2% like last time, it will be a full-blown alt-season. But I still maintain the fact that I think Bitcoin leads. Big assets will pop. Ethereum will probably make ground. We'll talk about Ethereum in a minute. Solana will probably jump as well. XRP, you get the idea. It may not be your 10 to 15 million market cap assets that go to the moon. It may not happen because of the liquidity situation. People may well just be like, well, you know what? I trust those versus them. People have been scammed way too much. Now, another bit of data that is very, very easy is the total 3/BTC chart. This is basically everything in a way, kind of ish, versus BTC. It's still on the floor. So that's telling us that we're not quite ready yet. We're not quite at the boiling, simmering point. And as I've alluded to before, the previous two charts need to go down. This one needs to go up, right? That's simply it. The total 3 is relative to obviously what Bitcoin's telling us in terms of the altcoin strength, so to speak. But it's not just pumping in USD terms. That's where people get it all wrong. They look at Bitcoin and go, oh, it's up 25% over the last month. And then their altcoins are up a little bit as well. If you go, oh, it's all season. No, this needs to go up high. And you can see this, this was, that period that I mentioned before, that little circle, was this period here as this was going up. Also, when we look at this sort of period here as it was kind of going up, but it wasn't going up enough. Only certain coins were pumping. We may well see that exact same behavior again. Now, I know this is the world's ugliest chart, but this is the Ethereum BTC chart. Historically, this is a chart that leads strength and is a reliable signal to tell the altcoins to wake the fuck up. That hasn't happened yet, but it could. And when we convert this to the Ethereum.D chart as well, this is a dominance. It's 7.44% currently, the lowest it's been in a very, 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 very long time. And the fact that it's went from 22% down to that period very, very quickly is a very, very big indication. And I've mentioned it before, we need this to bounce, and pretty significantly. This will allow Bitcoin dominance to eventually drop. And it will probably allow a lot of altcoins to wake up. Have we had a change of character yet? No. Has it changed anything yet? No. So just don't get too hasty. Now, just for a little bit of contrast and context, the Ethereum version does not look like the Solana version. I've maintained for a while, I believe that Solana will at some point flip Ethereum. I know people are like, no, it won't. But when you think of how well this has held up versus Ethereum, it's an interesting narrative. And Solana could, and has been over the last year or two, a market leader, as you can see by that chart. It's kind of obvious. If this shows strength, it might actually show some risk appetite returning, especially when you look at the enableization of meme coins, and that side of the market gets people in. And also, mentioned in my last video, this is the Solana BTC chart. Yeah, it's broken character, it's in a downtrend, it's looking ugly, but to return back to normal, it's not as far as the Ethereum side of it. Now, the only downside to all of this is the others.D chart. This is still in a honking downtrend. We need this one to rise because it's going to increase dominance of the entire market of the 125 kind of assets in a way that will indicate that small caps are returning to their normal kind of levels and pumping essentially. So when the small caps start to run a little bit, you're going to see the late stage of alt season. This is the late stage. So this is a bit of a thing for the end. The reality is here, right? The situation is very simple. Ethereum dominance needs to rise. Bitcoin dominance needs to drop. Solana dominance also will rise with it. And then this is the one that will rise at the end, because this is where all the small caps will have a little bit of a run. But usually, as I've alluded to it, this tends to be quite at the end, which is where the euphoria is, which is where you should be taking your profits, by the way, just saying. So be mindful of that. And you can see here very, very quickly that like how certain things did top out very, very towards the, it got very, very aggressive towards the end. When you think about the timeline in the previous cycle, this is when Bitcoin topped, right? $69,000, whatever. And then this ran up for a little bit longer. This is when the euphoric peak happened and where people got slaughtered. So in terms of timelines, what are we thinking? Well, I think it's all going to wash out this year, personally. You all know that. And the reality is here, it will mainly depend what's on the screen. Bitcoin. Is Bitcoin going to really, really lead? The problem we've had over the last 18 months is Bitcoin's up and down, and it's not allowing altcoins to breathe much. It needs to stay still. Basically, chill out. Obviously, dominance needs to top out. That will come with the line of obviously everything else breaking up or down, essentially, with the dominances because money's returning. The big clue that we need to look at is that stable currency dominance chart. If that keeps dropping, money's rotating in. And then we might well get some liquidity. We may get some liquidations, some short squeezes, long squeezes with the volatility that brings. But we'll see what the majors do. We need to keep a real close eye on Ethereum, Solana, XRP, even the likes of Chainlink, AVAX, they're all there. They're all on my screen just below my head. The thing is, they are all looking relatively good today. But even today, the dominance of Bitcoin is still quite high and it hasn't dropped much at all. A true alt season, in my opinion, I don't think we're going to get it like the last ones. Like what I mean by a true alt season where everything flies and they do 10x's, 20x's, 50x's. I think them days are gone. You will make money, but maybe not as much as you want to. But as I said before in previous videos, if you're holding Bitcoin and you've been holding for 3-4 years, you've already won. It's just how high does it go? What goes up with it? That is the ultimate question. The chart is setting up for a pretty interesting year, in my opinion, but it's not instant. And if you want to survive and thrive in the next alt season, in my opinion, you need to be early, but not too early. Jesus Christ. There's nothing wrong with getting the momentum play. I think of it like a cake. I think of this like when I trade the assets on altcoins. I want to see a change of character, a change of trend, a change of behavior. And I don't mind missing the bottoms. Doesn't bother me. It's like a cake, as I say. I like the gooey bit in the middle. Don't like the hard bit, let's be honest. So we need to remember that. Drop me a comment though. Which altcoin do you think will lead this next altcoin rally? If we get one, my bets are kind of on Solana, but I think Ethereum has to really bounce and turn up now.